the Optimistic Bite Show with me, the Optimistic BA, aka Judy Alter. And today, the person that I am interviewing is Diana Alp, and she has her name there as the No BS Career Strategy Coach. And when I read her bio, the first line is no BS, and believe me, that describes Diana perfectly. I actually met her when I went to speak at the IIBA Kansas City chapter on July 25th, 2019. And the event was held at a recruiting company office, and they had kind of a nice cafeteria, and it was, perfect setup to speak in. And I was speaking about Agile, and there were all these Agilists that showed up. And the room was really crowded. I mean, it was like people were standing on the back wall. And after I got done talking, even though I had done question and answer time, I probably talked and answered questions to people for almost an hour. And I was so hungry because I was going to eat dinner with some friends afterwards. And Diana comes up to the table and she sits down and introduces herself. And she said, "Well, I have some feedback for you." And that was the beginning of a whirlwind 6 months of her coaching, which really helped me, not only starting my business, but, to be able to speak. And actually, when I went to speak there in that summer, I hadn't retired from work yet, and I hadn't really made an official announcement, but I certainly made my mind up that week, especially when I was back at the hotel room, getting up at 4 a.m. to work on my project for work. And I knew that at that point I was going to retire the following year. So, and Diana had just left corporate America to start her own business. So we had a lot in common, and a lot has transgressed since that day. Last time I went to Kansas City last May, I went out to lunch with her and another friend of ours. And it was a fun day, great lunch. But the next day was when I collapsed in Kansas City, and it started off a whole big health issue. So I don't know if it was the two of them for lunch or what it could have been. But anyway, welcome, Diana.
Oh, thank you so much, Judy. I'm so glad to be here. I think a lot about that day that I met you, because what was so interesting about it is I had never met you before, but I had heard so much about you and your work at the global level with the IIBA. And I knew one of the things I'd learned is that you'd done tons and tons of web-based, like webinar training, virtual stuff. Mm-hmm. And the feedback that I gave to Judy, for all y'all watching, is that basically she, the fun personality of Judy was not coming through as much when she worked on from her slides that were designed more to work for a web training than an in-person training. But as soon as she went to Q&A, she was amazing. So we spent time working together on like, how can we bring that amazing to every single presentation, every single bit that she does? And holy moly, you've done that in spades the last 4 years.
Well,
I get a little pitter pat when I see things that you're doing.
Oh, cool.
That was
fun. So getting to the topic at hand, Diana specializes a lot. It's not her entire business, but she focuses on HR type things such as resumes.
Yep.
And so that's why I had her here today specifically. So what are the key elements that a BA should have on a resume? And really, it could apply to a lot of other professions.
Yeah, it really does. So if you don't mind, I want to back up a little bit and give just a little bit more context for my background and what I do.
Sure. No
I think that'll help people understand where I'm coming from. So my background before I became the No BS Career Strategy Coach is that I spent 20 years in corporate IT technology roles. So most of my career was spent in product management, agile, and business analysis. But I did basically a number of different roles where I had one leg in tech and one leg in the people process side, which of course is, hand in glove with everything that being a business analyst is about. I decided to start working on career coaching for leaders in tech because I was a leader in tech. I was serving those people. I did some coaching on the side for several years before I went full-time in my business in 2019. And I felt, really I've just been uniquely positioned to help this set of people, including I kind of got my start in a lot of it when I was a founding member of the KCIIBA chapter. And we would hold different events, whether it's a hiring panel discussion at one of the monthly meetings. We did sort of like a job search prep and resume review event a number of years ago that people could just come to on a Saturday morning and get help. I've been working on this for a really long time. And I've seen it from the coach perspective, the candidate perspective, the hiring manager's perspective. And I'm now even at the point where I do there's a IT staffing firm in town that I'm basically a strategic advisor to. So I did it from all these different angles over the years. And what I found is that there are some differences in different industries and levels and things like that on what your resume should look like. For example, someone that's like entry-level skilled labor in manufacturing is going to have a much different look and feel to their resume than a business analyst or a software developer or somebody that is in the knowledge field. But in general, to go back to your original question, what should be on a BA's resume is clarity. And clarity is the main thing that needs to be on any person's resume, no matter what the industry is. It needs to be on any person's LinkedIn too, as well as their interviews. You got to know what you're about and very quickly get to it. So I actually do not write resumes. A lot of people come to me asking me about the price for my resume services. And what I've also discovered over time is that the people I work with are mostly, most of them have either a bachelor's or a master's degree. They're well educated. And even if they don't have a college degree, like to hang in technology for very long, you got to be pretty smart and pretty articulate. So my observation over a 20 plus year career is that people have the ability to do this. Like you can learn this. It can be done. And also there's so much nuance to the different roles in tech that you want to learn how to do it. Because otherwise you're having to go back to a resume writer for help every single time. And so my mission for a long time has been to be a DIY resume evangelist and teach people how to do well on their resumes. So clarity is the main thing. And what I find is the key thing missing from when people are trying to be clear on their resume is that they overly focus on what everybody else wants and what the buzzword bingo of skills is, instead of really sitting and thinking first about what is the role that they want and then what is the commonality with the roles. It sounds the same, but it's not.
Right.
Because one is driven by your aspirations for your career and the other is driven by trying to please everybody else in the world except for yourself. So I like to see people talk clearly about what they want, talk clearly about what they're great at. If they have skills and certifications, absolutely don't leave them off, especially if they're really key on the job postings that you're interested in. But getting into the story of what your results actually are instead of just trying to hit all the keyword buttons is one of the ways that you provide clarity with your resume. So, a lot of times people are spending their time going, oh, what's the best template? I found this on Canva or that in Microsoft Word, or here's some stuff over on Etsy. It's far, far less about the template than it is about what you're actually saying in the document about how you brought value and what it is that you're there to do. So,
right. From time to time, a lot of the newer VAs are the people that contact me.
Yeah.
And a couple of them have asked me for resume advice. And while I'm not, an expert, the two things that I've found is that sometimes they've made it way too long, too detailed. It should be one page. I mean, that's.
No, I don't go with one page.
You don't go with one page. Okay.
I don't, and the reason if you're more than a couple of years out of school,
Right.
whether your highest level is, junior college, bachelor's degree, or even high school, if you have more than a couple of years of work experience, it's very hard to write a one-page resume that is clear and easy to read, because there's a lot of stuff around readability, even setting aside what the document is. There's a lot of stuff around readability that is really important. And what I find is that most people who are more than 2 years or so out of school, when they try to make a one-page resume, it ends up being really cramped. They end up focusing too much on just trying to play buzzword bingo with skills. They get focused on aesthetics in a way that doesn't serve them. Like they end up trying to go find the pretty template.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 2 columns and they put their picture on it, which you shouldn't even do in the US, guys. Don't put your picture on your resume.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it just ends up being a problem because it's not scannable. If you think about, how we hear things like Instagram or LinkedIn or like any of the social media platforms or blogs or whatever, 80+% of the views on any of those platforms are on mobile phones.
Yes.
And there's a lot of views of resumes happening on mobile phones too. If you think about it, if you go to the doctor and you're in the waiting room for 20 minutes, you might check your email. Well, a recruiter or a hiring manager sitting in the waiting room for 20 minutes might go check Workday to see if anyone new has applied for their job. So you want to make sure that your document has white space, breathing room. People scan information on their phones before they decide to read it. And if you are willing to bump to the second page, you can get some meaningful content on there. You can do it in a way that people can read well, but most people I work with, including people with 20+ years of experience, don't necessarily need the third or the fourth or the other pages.
Exactly.
They really do. So, but yeah, too long is very, very, very common. Yeah. What are some other things that you see?
Well, the other thing that I saw was that they were involved in volunteer things, and they didn't bring them out in a way on their resume to explain the skills that they had acquired.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Do you know you're the only other person that I've heard talk about that? Literally. Really? Yes. It's something I actually address. I have several different resume. Like I actually have a full do it yourself, write your resume from scratch workshop that I delivered live, and now it's people can buy it for a very inexpensive price. But I actually address that because people will go take a side hustle or volunteer work or something like that, sometimes specifically to build skills, and because they're used to only seeing people say, oh, well, I was the marketing director of the local IIBA chapter from 2020 to 2023. That's all they'll list. And it's like, well, why are you not listing some key results for that, just like you list key results for any full-time job that you do? So I actually train people. Usually when you're dealing with something like that, just pick like the best thing, the one best thing.
Right.
And in my course, I look at, I think one of the examples that I have in my course is someone that was a Girl Scout cookie parent.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a thing that a lot of times the stay-at-home mom gets roped into.
Right.
During whether they're on a career break or not. But for sure when they're on a career break, they get roped into that. And you think, you ran basically a whole sale that's like the main fundraiser for an organization.
Right.
For several years, and you had to manage parents and the Girl Scouts, council level and the kids and all this stuff. Like, that's legit.
Exactly. Or how to fit the cookie semi truck when it arrives with all the into your driveway.
Well, now they ship everything. The game has changed quite a bit, but you still have to be on, manage deadlines and manage communications and stakeholders and all that stuff, even in an age where it can be shipped. So I encourage people, like, what's your key result there? especially if you were using that opportunity to try to build skills so that you can apply them in your full-time gig. So I love that. I don't hear very many people talk about that at all.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So you might have already covered this, but what are tips or advice to make a standout resume? I know you've already said clarity and,
Well, I think one of the things I'd like to do if I want to step through the process that I use for people.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's
because I think that'll help. So I have created a 6-step process. I call it the Rock Your Resume Framework. So that you can take your boring old dull resume and redo it in a way that actually will capture attention from people. But there's 6 steps to it. The first is targeting. Targeting is where a lot of people miss, because what you're trying to do is say, an example of appropriate targeting might be, I would like to be a senior business analyst. I prefer to focus on platforms and data products, or I would like to focus in mobile app development, or maybe you'd say an industry, or 2 or 3 of those things. But you're trying to say, for my search, I want to do this thing in this type of company. And you can get as narrow as you want, because then you know where you're going to apply. You know what kind of vocabulary to use, because Mutual of Omaha being in insurance is very, very different than the ed tech world that I lived in for a long time.
Right.
The SaaS software world that I spent a lot of time in. So you want to kind of get what's my lane established. And then from there, I love the step of doing a brain dump. One of the reasons people have resumes that are so long is because they're afraid they're literally afraid they're going to forget stuff. It's like they think they can only have one Word document for the rest of their life for their resume. So they'll put everything in there. So I actively encourage my clients to do a full brain dump in a separate document. In my course, I actually show it as like Comic Sans and weird, like definitely looking like something you would not turn in to anybody. It doesn't have to have the pretty language or all the keywords, but like just get it out of your brain so that you are not so worried about it. And then if you, for example, decide to change your target in the future and maybe some different examples are going to be more relevant, you didn't lose them because they're in your brain dump document. And you brain dump everything from education to jobs. Like I have a sample where we brain dumped everything back to working at Taco Bell in the dream. You know?
Yeah.
Then you want to curate. And curating is where the magic happens, because curating is all about showing relevance and showing impact. One of the things I say often about resumes is that it's not a biography, it's a brochure. It's like an advertisement. It's a marketing document.
Right.
So similar to how when you go to the movies and they have the trailers, they don't show you the full 2.5 hours of the next MCU movie. They show you 3 minutes of it and just enough to get you interested so that you'll go buy a ticket to the movie later. You're trying to do the same thing with your resume. You want to show just enough match and just enough, wow factor that you'll get a call for an interview. A resume doesn't get you a job. A resume gets you phone calls or emails about interviewing. So in the curate section, you're eliminating stuff that doesn't matter from your brain dump or that doesn't matter for your target. It could matter if you change your target, but for your current target, you get rid of stuff that doesn't matter. And then you focus in on the stuff that does matter. So something I often see people in tech forget, a lot of times people will be at a company, like maybe they're a senior business analyst and they get promoted to be a manager of business analysts at that same company. And then if they decide to move on and they want a manager of BA role, they'll forget that it's almost more important the people management stuff that they did as a manager than their BA stuff. And they'll just totally forget to add it. Then they don't get called about a manager job because they didn't show that they were qualified. So that's where you're going through and saying, okay, I know I need to talk about, I did performance management and hiring and firing. And also I set up the processes for my BA team. And I was the senior BA on some projects. Like you want that to show instead of just, I was the BA on project A, project B, and project C. All that magic happens there. the things around showing metrics and impact and results and that kind of stuff, that stuff happens there too in the curate step. When you're done with the curate step, you hopefully have something that's only like a page and a half or so long. You can keep cutting. But then you're going to move into format. So a lot of people want to start with the template. They want to say, okay, I got my template, paid $10 for a template off of Etsy, let's go. Yeah. I encourage people, just work in a plain old Google Doc until you get to where you're pretty close on the curating, and then go find how you want to format it. It could be a little fancy, or it could be pretty plain. The examples I have are plain because I suck at design, and I don't care about that. So then in formatting, you're going to make sure that you have everything proofread, that you have everything in the right order, that you're showing the most important stuff at the top of the page. Because if you have a 2-page resume, the first third to half of the first page gets the person to read the rest of the first page. And then the first page itself gets them to read anything else or to look at your LinkedIn or to call you. So we focus a lot on that. So some key tips there that I like to tell people. Most important one, actually list the job title you're applying for.
Yeah.
A lot of people just have like their name and then they're going into work experience that very often is just a boring list of tasks, and there's nothing connecting it to your target. So at the top of that page, you're going to connect it to your target. And then when you're working through the format stuff, you're also going to do things like make sure that it's readable, make sure your font isn't too small. Make sure you didn't decide to use light gray. That could be a problem if someone's scanning it or doesn't have good vision, like those types of things. Make sure that your name is on the second page if you go to 2 pages. Make sure that the link to your LinkedIn profile or your portfolio is hot so that people can actually click through to it. And, all of those kinds of, use bolding strategically. The thing I don't want people doing is putting a whole bunch of icons on there. I don't want them putting a bunch of icons, a bunch of fancy fonts. A little of that goes a long way, and most resumes are fine without hardly any of that. So that's the format step. Then you go into review. You got to review the thing.
Right.
And the best thing to do is to actually step away from it. So if possible, I like people to sleep before they ever submit their resume. So review it, maybe ask a friend to review it. You could hire a coach or a resume writer to review it as well, so that you're starting from a really strong baseline resume, and you're looking for proofreading, and you're looking for, kind of just sanity. And my favorite tip for review is to read it out loud. If you read your resume, it's so, isn't that like, oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah.
If you read your resume out loud, a few things happen. Number one, you find missed words.
Yes.
Which is the biggest thing that at least for me, my mind goes a million miles an hour. But you find words, you find typos. The other thing you find is BS, and I don't do BS.
Yeah.
If you have too much jargon in your resume, you might feel like, oh, well, like another senior developer or another senior BA is going to understand all this stuff, but is the recruiter going to? Did you remember to define something early in the resume so that you can use the acronym later in the resume? Like those little things shape when you read it out loud. And then the next thing after review is to tailor. So when you get to the review section, what you have is a beautiful looking baseline resume that is going to just be amazing for the target that you picked and show why it mattered that you're on the team. And then when you apply for jobs, you only need to do some tweaks. A lot of people get caught up in, I have to practically rewrite my resume every time I apply. Well, if you're targeting correctly, you only need to spend a couple of minutes. So some things you do when you tailor, like thing one is like change the thing at the top. If I had a generic thing of senior business analyst for mobile applications, and then it's called like senior platform analyst for mobile platforms or something like that on the job posting, you just copy and paste that out. And then you can also change the order of stuff based on what looks most important, or maybe some terminology. A common example of terminology is sometimes people use the term customer. but the place they're applying, you can see on their website or their job posting, they use the term client. Let's go search in the place. Use the word client instead. And it already looks like you belong there because you're talking like them. So
sure.
That's that's kind of the process in a nutshell. And it's, it's like weirdly simple, but not, like a lot of things with analysis and writing are. But if you think through those steps, whenever you're going through writing your resume, it'll help keep you from having a 10-page resume. It'll help keep you from having, a resume people can't read. It'll help keep you from feeling like you have to spend an hour fixing your resume every time you apply for a job. So,
exactly.
Yeah. And these tactics, they work. I have used them on everything from college students that are 19 years old and trying to apply for their first internship, all the way up into the C-suite.
Sure.
It's
makes sense. It really does make sense. What about the buzzwords that some sort of AI program will immediately reject your resume?
Okay, let's talk about the ATS. And AI. Let's talk about that because there's a lot that people don't understand about what's happening. So there's an applicant tracking system, and I go through this in detail in my course. An applicant tracking system is just a filing cabinet and a workflow engine. That's it.
Okay.
It is designed to help recruiters and hiring managers manage the applications for the positions they're hiring for. And in a lot of cases, especially for companies that either contract directly with the federal government or they subcontract into the federal government in the US, I can't speak to the rest of the world, but in the US, it's often required by law that a human review a resume. Right? So all of this, you'll hear people say things like, 95% of resumes never get seen by a human. In a lot of cases, that's BS. It's not true. And I can cite you, there's a number of recruiters that have been very generous in talking about how the ATS actually works and how these laws. And Judy, I might actually send you links to a couple of the people I trust. You can put it in your show notes if you'd like. But basically, the only time you truly get kicked out instantly is if you fail on what's called a knockout question.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of knockout questions before?
Yes, because we used to use them on certain small dollar life insurance policies.
Oh, okay. So this will be fun if I'll tell you my example and then you can maybe tell an insurance example.
Sure.
So an example of something that would be a knockout question is if you go online. Okay, this is like a really basic kind of different from corporate America example. If you go online and you try to apply for a job at TGI Fridays in Kansas as a bartender and you're not 21, you're going to get kicked out.
Right.
Because you have to be 21. So the knockout questions are typically around very, very important qualifications that are put into laws, legal regulations, stuff like that. So, for example, the odds of being hired as a lead civil engineer at Burns and Mac, and if you don't have your professional engineering license, you probably would get kicked out. Might not be every engineering job, but that job, if you're going to be the leader over it, you might have to have that. And if you don't have it, you might immediately get told you're not qualified. That's because you failed a knockout question. Other common examples of knockout questions relate to citizenship. So
right. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be a U.S. citizen in order to work with, certain data or things like that. If you're working again with the federal government or federal contractors, could be a driver's license. Like you're not going to get hired by the post office if you don't have a valid driver's license.
That'd be a little tough.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. Yeah. And in some cases, a lot of good recruiters fight against this, these kinds of requirements. But sometimes if they say you have to have 5 years,
sure,
and they can't tell that you've got 5 years of something, you might automatically get kicked out.
Right.
Now, on the back end, I hear stories from recruiters every day that are asking hiring managers, really? Like, really? You would kick out someone that had 4.5 years because it's 5 years?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it helps them get things more reasonable, but
Sure.
it's big requirements. It's not like, well, you know what? She didn't specifically list that she knows how to do fishbone diagrams, so we're going to automatically, the AI is not kicking anybody out because they don't know how to do fishbone diagrams.
Right.
It's not happening. But what does happen is sometimes there's so many people that apply that they close looking for, interviewees. If 500 people apply,
and I can understand that.
Are qualified, and they find 10 people that are finalists in the first 150. You might have missed out because they effectively kind of closed the posting. So AI, the buzzwords are a little, really, people get so hung up on keywords. Most of it is just skills.
Yeah,
it's just skills. So if they say they want someone that's done business analysis and understands Scrum, you probably should have business analysis and Scrum appear somewhere on your resume.
Exactly.
You have to list them 5 times.
Yeah.
But it's good if it's there.
Well, at this point, we're just about finished, but this is where we always give our guests an opportunity to specifically promote their business.
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
I feel like I did a little of that. So in my business, we talked a lot about resumes today, but really my business is centered around helping people be happy at work. I want them to find the right kind of job for them. I believe one of the most important things I believe people need to keep in mind for their career and their life as a whole is that what you want actually matters. So much of the time when we're working through a career transition or trying to get promoted or in the middle of a search after a layoff, people will be concerned about, how do I make them like me? How do I make them like me? And they won't think about what they actually need for themselves to be happy. So I help people with, I have 2 lanes of programs right now that I work with the most. The first is what I call career design, or the what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, yeah.
In my career design programs, I work with people to understand their values and their strengths, their talents and their skills, kind of like the gooey stuff on the inside and the practicality of the economy, and figure out what's the right next role for them to go into. And in my job search strategies programs, I help people pick up and say, okay, you want to be a senior business analyst for mobile apps. Let's talk about how to position yourself. Let's talk about how you should write your resume and your LinkedIn, and also how you should network and talk about yourself in interviews and all of that kind of stuff. So those are the 2 main things that I do. I have one-on-one coaching opportunities, and I'll be launching a group program later this year that'll be designed to take people all the way from what the heck am I going to do next, all the way through onboarding. So it'll be for an extended period of time to help you transition and really start into a new role with success, because most onboarding programs kind of suck at companies. They get you signed up for your insurance and your benefits and all that kind of stuff, but they don't necessarily help you with your actual job. So you have to drive that yourself, and I'm going to help people do that. And then, like I said before, I have resources. I'm trying to do more DIY resources and digital products, especially at an inexpensive rate when people are concerned about the economy. Right. So I created the Rock Your Resume course. So you go to howtorockyourresume.com, get that course for $60. It'll take you all the way through how to write your resume, and it's got a money back guarantee. If you don't like it in 7 days, I don't ask questions. I just give you your money back. So it's no risk. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to let people know is that when they're getting started on their resume, sometimes just making a few tweaks at first, especially if you urgently need to apply for something, can help out. So I created a little free guide that I call my resume don'ts guide. It's 6 things that you want to make sure are not on your resume. And you can get that at dianateaches.com. It's just a PDF download, and then you'll end up on my email newsletter list and get all the no BS entertainment every Friday. Yeah, so that's kind of a lot of the key things I have going on, but more is coming. I'm starting a blog soon, so that'll be more free content to help people with their career transitions. And
Cool.
I'm pretty excited about it. Life's too short to work a crappy job. So
Oh, absolutely. Life's too short for a lot of things.
yes.
You know how I believe in that for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know how you believe in it too. Yeah, it's kind of funny how every once in a while you must have clicked something on some media somewhere where you get on these lists. And lately I've been getting these emails about buying franchises. I don't know
Oh my
what I
gosh.
did, but whatever. The one this week cracked me up because it was for if I wanted to own a pest control business.
I mean, when people need some pest control, they need some pest control.
I know, but I just can't even imagine doing something like that. And,
Yeah, there's it is not that is not the life that I want to lead.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but I tell you what, it can be kind of, I'm the nerd that like, I don't want to own a franchise, but if I see that, I'll be like, it could be cool to learn what running a franchise is about. Like,
Yeah.
I'll learn about it. I'm not going to do it, but
I look at it from the point of view that I'm such a klutz that I would probably poison myself or get injured.
Yeah, I would
learning
hire
about
people that wouldn't
so.
poison me. But I
Anyway,
understand
well,
completely what
thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy following what you're doing. You've progressed so much in the last few
Great.
years, and
I appreciate that.
we need more cheer in the world. So
Yeah, exactly.
the only thing I'm sad about, Judy, is that you did not wear your trademark yellow glasses today.
Oh gosh. The last time I spoke, I forgot those.
Yeah, I told people Seth Godin wears yellow glasses. Are you familiar with Seth Godin?
No.
He's a marketing thought leader. He's really interesting.
Oh.
And he wears bright yellow glasses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that was a gift from Biaka.
He gave you those glasses?
Yeah, because that's one of the optimistic BA color. So thank you, and hope to talk to you soon. And
yes.
Have a great weekend.
You too. We'll talk soon.